Hello, everybody. Deal here. I'm with Angie and Robert. Um, we're here at Boston, and they were here at the Chicago event. It's about as the Twin Flames. I'm just doing some very nice brief interview with them. So they're here to share their story, their journey as a Twin Flames, and I'm so impressed of their journey, the way they did their journey. It's that took all that time and the reflections of how that happened in your life and where they are as of today as a Twin Flames. So I'm going to ask them some a few questions, and they can be able to help you out to understand on your journey as a twin flame that there is a processes that's going on, and those processes they happen for a reasons. So you two guys met. How long time ago you guys met?
20 years ago. It was July 25th, 1997.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And what happened when you met?
Well, when we met, we really met on the telephone first because we had met through a little tear-off tag, a phone number that she'd left in a bulletin board in our laundry room in the building that we lived in. And I don't know why she would say hi, someone looking to meet others to go hiking with. I tore off the number and gave her a phone call, and we had an instant connection on the phone.
So then he asked me, he said he was just off of work for 2 weeks on holidays, and he asked me if I wanted to go to the mountains the next day. And being new to the city, I thought, sure, why not? So we met in the lobby, went to the mountains, and had a 15-hour magical day together. And just had an instant bond, soul connection that was literally magical.
I had no idea what to expect. I was just expecting to take someone on a tour of various little highlights, just like a normal tour guide would, just a little more personalized. But after the first 20 minutes of awkwardness, like, hi, who are you? And you didn't sound like the person I was talking to on the phone, but oh well, let's go. When we got talking, it was very, very magical.
How long did you guys spend the time talking on the phone?
A couple hours.
Yes.
The first time, couple hours.
First time,
Yeah.
a couple hours. And then I think there was a second time where
Yeah.
it took us, where I felt confident enough to invite Angie out to the mountains.
Okay. What was the feelings when you guys were together? Like you to know each other, or?
Yes, instant. I shouldn't say
Yes.
instant recognition. We recognized each other on a soul level, but physically it was like, I don't remember this body. It just didn't feel the same. But once we got past that, it was an instant soul recognition of like, I know you. And
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about soulmates or spirituality. The word twin flame was not out at all in our experience anyway.
It didn't
So
exist back
we
then.
had no idea. We just had this instant connection of, I don't know how I know you, but I know you.
There was any events like a miracle events that happened during that time?
Yes, there was. As we were approaching coming back home, it was right near the end of the day. We were driving east. Now, this is hard to describe, but we had a lake in front of us, and a thunderstorm had already passed over us, and it was further to the east. The sun was setting behind us to the west, and it was the most unusual thing I had ever seen and ever have seen since. The sun was shining brightly against the back of this thunderstorm and reflecting across the water, much like a sunset. But the sunset was coming from the east off the back of the cloud. I called it a reverse sunset because it was coming from totally the wrong direction. It was amazing.
And it just united us in a very deep spiritual way. It was just solidified the bond that we were already experiencing.
I had spent the past couple of years before this, before meeting Angie, going through a large amount of spiritual growth, and I didn't understand about downloads. That also didn't really exist in terminology back then either. But to have this event happen with the reverse sunset with someone who had just met and had already had a magical day with, it resonated very heavily in me. I knew there was something special there.
Okay. And a little bit forward, you two got together. You realized that there is this deep bond and this deep spiritual connection. Could you explain that first part when you were the very first time you were living together? How that felt?
Well, when we were dating, uh, time stood still. We had a span shortly after the hike where we spent 90 hours together talking about everything under the sun. And we only got about 8 hours sleep. We would talk for a third or a half a day and then sleep for an hour or two, and then talk for another half a day and then sleep for an hour or two. I was on holidays. I didn't have any other responsibilities, but time blew by. All of a sudden, 3.5 days had gone by, and I hadn't slept very much, but I had this huge conversation that literally built up what felt like years of knowledge.
What about you, Angie? How did you feel of those conversations?
Oh, it was just like reacquainting with my best friend that I'd lost touch with. And it was like catching up. Okay, so what have you been doing? What have I been doing? And it was just amazing to finally meet this person that I felt like I'd been missing for so long, that I didn't even know I was missing. But it brought back a piece of the puzzle of my life.
Okay. And then time passed by. And how did that progress? How did the intensity of the connection actually rise up?
The intensity always was there. After a while, though, I felt like, I don't want to call it real life, but for this sake I will, real life issues, you know, the day-to-day things, the communication, and also the thought of almost overstimulating each other. It started to create imbalances, problems, energetic problems, where there was times where we, and I felt like more times Angie, needed to take a break from it, needed to breathe, relax, remember who she was.
And for him, holidays were over, so he went back to his job, which was very intense, 3D job. And for me, I was just starting to discover spirituality. I was growing huge. So I was starting to see angels and auras. So he'd come home every day and he'd be like, I have to reacquaint myself with you every day. I don't know who you are because you've changed so much in just a day. So we started to realize we were growing apart because I was so deep into spirituality and he was so deep into 3D physical world that we started growing apart and feeling pulled apart, really.
So that begin your part that you start the begin of this separation process.
Yes.
Yes, it got to be really difficult. We'd communicate well for a couple of days and then we wouldn't. There'd be this distance, this separation. And it soon started to go into about a weekly cycle.
Okay, and that was that tensions that rised up more
Yeah.
and more between you. Okay,
Yeah.
until you guys had enough?
Well, there came a time where my patience ran out. I could see that we weren't developing any further forward. We respected each other. We knew we loved each other, but we could just not keep on with this energy that we couldn't manage. So
I was just going to say, it was also very intense for me because I was going through so much growth and his energy was too much for me. So I would do a push and pull. I would get close to him and then I'd pull away and I'd get close and pull away. And he finally was like, if you need to go, I got to let you go.
And
so
I did.
I was a runner.
I took her aside one night and had a little Kleenex box on my table in my apartment and invited her over, and I let her go, much like I would. I'm a manager at a store, and I let her go almost like an employee. I like you very much, but this isn't working out. Goodbye.
What was your thoughts about when you let her go? So she can learn how to work with you, or what was your thoughts that you thought about it?
I was lost a lot in my own hurt. I had tried everything that I could, everything that I knew, to try to find a way to make things more comfortable for her. And I didn't know where she was going to go, but I knew for my own sanity, my own benefit, my own grounding, I knew that she had to step away. She had to go figure out whatever it was.
Okay. So Angie, how did you felt?
Oh, it broke my heart. I mean, as I say, I wanted him, but I felt I needed to be alone. But I wanted him, but I wanted to be alone. So I begged him, no, let's work this out. Let's try.
The inner work that needed to be done. Okay.
Yes, but I also knew I wasn't ready to be with him. but I didn't even know that there would be a future. I had no idea.
You
at
had no
that
idea
point.
about
No,
the future.
not
So
at
what
all.
happened into the future?
Well, sometimes when you let someone go who you really love, it just doesn't. It's not just waving goodbye. It took us almost a year after that to actually ramp down, not seeing each other, not going out for the odd supper or getting together for a coffee, or it started out almost like once a week we would still see each other, but eventually we managed to, I managed to get her pushed far enough away that we started to really fall out of touch. I also started into another relationship. I met another fantastic person that, looking back at it, she reminded me of Angie.
And for me, I finally it took me a long time to let him go, a long time. Every relationship I'd get into, I'd compare them to him, and I'd say, this don't measure up, and I don't have that magical connection. There's no soul connection like there was with him. But I thought, okay, whatever it was meant to be, and it was meant to be done. So I finally, it took me years, but I let him go and moved on with my life. And interestingly enough, had other relationships with people of the same name.
Okay, can you explain that part right now, right there?
Okay. Now, one shortly after Angie, one before Angie. I've had Angies in my life. I've had an Angie, being Angie. I've had an Angelina and an Angela. And I don't know why I'm drawn to angels, but they seem to be my favorite.
And I've had 4 Robs. I had a Rob before him, and then I had him, and then I had 2 more after him.
I get to be Rob number 2.
Yes, he's not It's Rob number 2.
So here's another question for you. You two got separated into separate relationships, but you guys kept in touch. What kept you in touch?
It came and it went. We would go sometimes years without any communication, and then we would just feel drawn to each other for whatever reason. Sometimes it was just a happy birthday text, sometimes a Merry Christmas text.
I couldn't completely let go. When you have a reverse sunset day with somebody, can you ever completely sweep them out of your life? Can you ever just totally unlove them? No. So I just couldn't 100% let go. Like, go didn't mean go completely away.
You just let her go to do her work.
Without
Yes.
understanding
Without
that.
understanding.
Without knowing it.
Without understanding any of that concept.
Okay, so you had a relationship. How did you felt when you were in a relationship, but she's still inside of your head?
For the most part, it was okay. Yeah, I don't believe you can completely unlove anybody. So if you've had 2 or 3 or 4 loves in your life, they still occupy a little bit, like maybe a 1% portion of your heart, of your spirit. So there was plenty of room in the karmic relationship after Angie that I had to still once in a while think and fondly remember Angie.
How about you? You felt like you comparing everybody that you had in a relationship with him.
Yes.
How that felt for you?
Oh, it was horrible. Because as I say, no offense to any of the other ones, but they didn't measure up, and I didn't understand why. But I just never had that same soul bond. I did have a lot of soulmates with a wonderful, deep connection, but there just always felt like there was something missing. I would long for him. I would miss him and wish to have that connection back.
Okay, so how did you reconnect it back?
Well, after a certain amount of time, like she had 2 relationships after we broke up. I call it the first time.
How many years was that?
Well, now we're dealing with about, 12 years after breakup?
Yeah, at that point, about 12.
Yeah, I broke down. I started to communicate with her just a little bit more. And it wasn't an invitation to come back or anything. It was just an acknowledgement that I needed to be a bit more in touch. I believe I was thinking that I wanted to have her back in a corner of my life as a friend, not knowing how she would fit.
Okay, so you guys start communicated back in.
Yeah, without ever having been completely apart.
Yeah.
100% apart.
Yeah.
There was a 2 or 3 year span of silence.
Yeah. So he actually called me for my birthday and just said, I have some time, I'd like to take you out for lunch. So we hadn't seen each other in probably a couple of years at that point.
Yeah.
And so we went out for lunch, and it was this, the only way I can explain it is like a soul was, or a switch was turned back on in my soul. And it was like all of that stuff that had finally I'd been able to shut off and let go of was turned back on. And it was like my soul said, it's now time. And I didn't know time for what. I didn't even know. So after our lunch, I went searching because I couldn't get him out of my head no matter how much I tried. So I just went to the internet and found the words twin flames. And before I even read anything about it, it resonated so strong. It just, I just knew that's what it was without even understanding what twin flames were.
Now, how many years is after you guys got separated we're talking about now?
This was probably
About
16, 17?
Yeah, 16 years.
Yeah.
And what you do when you find that twin flame part? What happened inside of you? What?
It was this huge awakening of, this explains everything we've ever been through. And I had kept journals from years ago, so I actually went back into my journals. Once I read the explanation of twin flames and it resonated so much, I thought, I have to see if this really is what we experience. So I literally went back into all my journals, which I'd never ever thought I'd read again. And everything was exactly like it was described in everything I was reading. We fit all of the stages and the patterns and the explanations, the unique way of meeting, the magical connection, the deep bond, the separation, the soul bond, everything fit perfectly. So then I thought, well, I don't know what to do with this because I'm in a relationship and he's in a relationship and I'm not about to go be a home wrecker. So
How
I'm
long
just
did you
gonna
keep
keep
that?
quiet. A year and a half. I
Wow.
held that information and I just felt this draw to study everything I could about twin flames. So at that point there wasn't a lot on the internet. Now, I mean, it's huge, but at that point there wasn't a whole lot. So I read everything I could. And just read and learnt, but I didn't want to tell him because I didn't want to wreck his life. I didn't want to wreck my life.
Okay. What about you during this period when she was studying this twin flames? What did you do about your inner work?
Well, I was in a karmic relationship that I didn't quite understand at the time, but because this other person was also a very spiritual person, I was doing a lot of spiritual work as well, mostly with myself. This relationship was not healthy because this other person was very dominant over me spiritually. So as it had started out being very intense as far as spiritual growth was concerned, but about halfway through this 12-year blank that Angie and I had, I started to really shut down spiritually. I stopped dreaming, and that was big for me. I'd have just big, long, dark sleeps, which feels good when you wake up in the morning, but it's missing stuff. And I think that's one of the other draws I also had to starting to be a little bit more back in touch with Angie, is because I missed that connection that I had had with Angie.
Simply because you can't have it with nobody else.
I could not feel the work that Angie was doing. I did not know that she had come across anything to do with twin flames, but I knew that this relationship I was in was coming to an end. I felt like I'd learned anything I could from it.
And for me, I had no idea the work that he had done. One of the reasons I was resistant to tell him is because when we were together before, he was very 3D, very logical, very analytical, spiritual. He was deeply spiritual in his own sense, but yet he wasn't open to spirituality in the way that I understood it. So there was no way I was going to tell him, by the way, I found out this information. We're twin flames. Because I thought there's no way he'll get this. Little did I know he was doing a bunch of work with his.
How did you overcome the fear to tell him?
A year and a half later, I felt pushed. I meditate daily, and my own guidance within just finally said, you have to tell him. And I had no agenda of telling him. I just thought, okay, fine. I mean, I've fought this for a year and a half. I guess I can't fight it anymore.
The resistance part?
The resistance part.
How he explained that resistance? If you can put it like in a minute.
Trying to think of how to. It's this pressure that you kind of feel, not without, but within. This, it's almost like a pressure cooker that you can feel building and building and building to the point where you're like, okay, I surrender, and that's it. You constantly talk about trust, surrender, let go. That's what it was for me. I had to finally trust and surrender and let go of any of the fears that I had, because we were just starting to develop a friendship.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to ruin any of that. I didn't want to ruin our lives because we were with other people. But I knew nothing else but finally to just trust, surrender, and let go and
Good.
do what I was told to do.
How did you find the courage, or what did you tell him about the twin flame? How did that happen?
So I did it little steps at a time. So I just sent him a text and said, if there was an explanation for everything we've been through, the weird way we met, the connection that we have, the long times that we've gone without talking and then talking, and all of this, would you want to know?
And I was receptive. I was thinking to myself, okay, I have felt this too over the years. I've kept it suppressed, but I was curious, not knowing what she was going to say. So yeah, I invited her to elaborate more.
And he actually even used the word bond. He said, we've always had a very unique bond and nothing will ever change that. So sure, I'd be interested to know more. So I just gave him little bits at a time, and I told him about my soul switch kind of thing and how I'd felt and all this stuff I was studying. And it took me all day to finally get up the courage, but I, through text, just told him, I've discovered this information. It's called twin flames. And I told him nothing about it. And I said, if you feel inspired to look it up, do your own research, do whatever you want with it.
Okay, here's this part now. I'm going to bring it back into, okay, your karmic relationships, your marriages. Did they help you in an impact so you can understand better what did that mean to be on a partnership as a twin flames?
Huge for me. I did so much work with my karmic relationship that now looking back, we couldn't be together without the work that I did with other relationships. I had to heal, I had to grow into my masculine, stand strong in myself. So it taught me, all of those relationships taught me so much.
And my primary 12-year relationship, while we were apart, as much as I'd done inner growth, I needed to learn to accept outer expressions of spirituality. Let's say the beatings of the drums, the fluffing of auras on plants, as an example. That was all stuff that was new to me. I knew that it existed, but it was not something that I used to be able to outwardly handle and accept. My karmic relationship, my person was very much into that kind of stuff, and I learned to grow with it and accept it as being normal and purposeful and healthy, which was something I didn't have at all of a thought when I first met Angie.
So basically your karmic relationship helped you to get unstuck where you were actually stuck between you two.
Yes, it did, but I did not know it all as I do now at that time.
And that's what it was also fascinating for me. I was terrified to tell him of the truth that I had discovered, because I was thinking of him as the Rob from 20 years ago, not the Rob that he was now. I had no idea he was doing all this growth, that he had grown spiritually this much.
So you finally met again. How did it happen? And that part when you were like, okay, we're accepting each other as a twin flames, that reconnection back into it.
So when I finally told him and said the words twin flames, I just sat and bawled, because I thought, he's never going to speak to me again. I've completely lost him as a friend. I wasn't even thinking of, my intention wasn't to tell him for us to get back together. I had no thoughts of that, because I just didn't see how that was even possible. I just felt I had to tell him this information. But I just thought, okay, I've even lost him as a friend now. He'll never speak to me because he thinks I'm a crazy nut.
That was a
And
fear, right?
the huge fear, again, because of our past and how we were so different then, and I had no idea about the growth that he was doing. So I was still thinking I was talking to the 20-year ago Rob.
How did you overcome that?
Trusting in myself, going within. My soul said, you have to do this. Okay, I will face this fear, even if it means I lose him. I have to do what's right for me. The inner call was so strong, and I couldn't deny it anymore.
Okay, how about you, Sadie?
Well, when she started telling me little bits and pieces of information about twin flames, much like her, it made sense. It did. And I had no way of communicating that back to her. So when she started telling me this information, I just sent her a short little text that let her know that I was okay with it. All I texted was, I still love you. That's what I did. I had to do that to let her know that I wasn't thinking that she was crazy. Now, I wasn't sure what I was thinking
How
about.
many years is time length so far right now in your
Now
journey?
we're at about 17 years.
At that point, yeah.
Yeah, 17 years since
17 years.
since the time we had first met, roughly
Okay.
15 years without any serious contact.
Okay, and then it came to the point like we surrender.
Yes.
It's,
Yeah.
we have to be. How did you do that? You have to be again as together, to get away from your karmic relationships and go back in together.
For me, it was with a thought that I was already thinking that my karmic relationship had run its course. This was an affirmation of what I had felt way back when I'd met Angie. This added the puzzle pieces together to something that I could embrace again. I stopped pushing her away. It took me probably only a week of inner debate to realize that my karmic relationship was going to end and that Angie was going to have a chance again in my life. I didn't know how, but it was going to happen.
So you basically want to say that your karmic relationship was exhausted.
Yes.
So there was no anything more to be worked out of that karmic relationship.
Yes.
And you had felt that for years, that it was starting to come to an end.
Yeah, I had 3 or 4 years of wanting to end it, but yet I still actually very much, I'd like to use the word love. I still loved the person I was in the karmic relationship with, but the relationship itself was fairly empty from my point of view.
Okay, how about you, Angie?
My relationship was actually already kind of ended. We were basically living as roommates. So we were already wrapping things up on our end as well.
So basically, you finish your karmic relationship,
Yeah.
and you finish your karmic relationship, and what happened?
Well, it was Groundhog Day after we had connected with the twin flame concept. I sat down my karmic relation person, and it wasn't quite like the firing that I put Angie through years and years ago, but it was, hi, this relationship has to end. There was a lot of shock on her side. She did not see it coming. I'm not an unloving person. So the day before, we'd been out snowshoeing and holding hands with people that we know, and then I dropped this bomb on her, and I knew that it was going to hurt.
What
And it-
pushing you to do that?
When you know that there's a better relationship out there, when you know you've got a bond with someone
That's
did-
never ended.
that's never ended and is also never ending, do you look at the next 20 or 30 years remaining in your life, or however long it's going to be, and say you're going to stay there? Or do you switch to something that you know is going to fulfill and work with your soul much better? I made a choice. I had to leave. I had to hurt someone who I loved dearly, but it was to get back with someone who I also loved very dearly.
Yeah. Another question about specifically that part. Did you feel like you had to be on your truth about this?
Yes, yeah. I couldn't really continue on with myself. I couldn't fake it I
That was a part of
yeah,
the soul?
I was already starting to fake it already, and I couldn't fake it anymore. Couldn't live like that. That's just not how I'm built.
Okay.
My soul doesn't like that.
What did you tell your karmic, Angie?
Actually, I didn't tell him anything.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's gonna be spicy.
I let him be the one to end it, and miraculously he did. But in the meantime, I've already started a somewhat relationship with
Back
Rob.
with Rob.
Yes.
Okay.
So I was living a bit of a duplicitous life, which was not the wisest choice to make. But I was very afraid of my karmic relationship because he could be a very angry, volatile man, and I thought if I tell him, there's going to be nightmares. So I thought, I'm not going there.
But everything turned out to be okay at the end, right?
It did, yes.
There was
challenges.
There's
There
challenges
was
and
no
doubt.
struggles.
Oh, wow.
Like for example, when I moved out from living with my karmic partner, instead of being weeks or months later that I moved in with Angie because she had the place to live, it was days. And there was a way that both of our karmic relationship people could get a hold of each other, and they did, and they compared notes, and they put us through a form of hell that I wouldn't wish upon anybody. They came back at us, and it was very hard to remain positive during their barrage of
They tried to punish you.
accusations.
Oh, yes.
And yeah, they did. They
Which,
tried to punish
if
us.
I may say, we attracted because of the lies we told and the way we went about getting back
So
together.
you paid a price for not
Yes,
telling the
absolutely.
truth.
Yeah,
So what would you say as an advice to the twin flames that they're watching you now about the truth?
straight
Tell
up,
the truth.
straight up. If
Yes.
you've got to be honest about where you are, even if you're nowhere near leaving, let's say, a karmic relationship. If you know that relationship it is going to end or could end, if you're not happy, don't wait and wait and wait until you have no choice anymore. Let them know the truth now.
Yeah, even if you don't fully understand the dynamic, if you can share with them, I have this other person, we have this unique bond, I don't know where it's going, I don't know what it fully is, but be honest.
To be honest.
Yeah.
Okay. And now, you guys working together on the issues at the moment, the unions and stuff. I know that you guys, when you guys came to Chicago, you were not married, but you were guys already in the union. Now you guys are married. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm really happy for you to now the experiences that you had on your own of this learning how to work with others. Now it helps you in the relationship.
Huge.
Could you explain that part in a few words?
For me, again, being with karmic relationships taught me how to stand in my power. I used to be a very wimpy, terrified, in my shell kind of person. So without even understanding what I was doing, I was learning to be more masculine. I was learning to stand in my masculine. So in our relationship, I'm much more balanced now. Instead of being that fearful little person that I was 20 years ago, now the energy doesn't scare me like it did then because I have the masculine and feminine balance within.
So now you understand both the masculine and the
Yes.
feminine part.
Yes,
Simply because you're in a feminine body, but you have also masculine energy.
exactly.
How about you, Rob?
For me, it was just more about learning acceptance, because being a very 3D driven person for many years, I cannot thank my karmic relation person enough for how much she opened my eyes. I was already opening my own eyes, but only to a certain level of acceptance. She really did, without knowing it, she really did teach me what I needed to know.
Yes.
To re-accept Angie, who had also grown. It's interesting that both the karmic relationships that we had towards the end were actually preparing us for the same
each
direction,
other.
for each other again,
Yeah.
in changed people.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain.
You were the runner.
Yes.
What would you say about the runners as an advice?
Um, I'll first explain why I was the runner. I had a lot of childhood trauma in my life, and when you meet your own soul in another body and you see the reflection in the mirror of yourself and you're unhealed, it scares the crap out of you because all you see is your own stuff. So my advice is face your stuff. Rather than running, because when you're running, you're not just running from your twin flame, you're running from yourself. So rather than run, face your stuff. Go within, do the healing work you need, feel the pain, work on it, face it, deal with it.
What about you, Rob?
At the same time, as a chaser, you're scaring away the other person. Usually you are. And that's usually an inner reflection of some disbalanced strengths and energies that they can't handle that you have within yourself. So keep working on within yourself to improve where you're at. Don't just sit back and wait. But at the same time, from the other point of view, have the patience to wait, because as you learn and develop, some of that information is going to transfer over to your twin. That's why they're a
Yes.
twin. You share information energetically. So grow, continue your growth, and be patient.
There was a part of inside of you about let go.
Yeah.
When you had to really let her go, can you kind of like a brief few words, if you can describe that let go?
The letting go is part of a realization of incompatible growth, where one person and the other person are not in the same place. They can exist only at a lower level that isn't acceptable. So the letting go is, it's not about giving up, it's about giving a chance. I never did give up on Angie. She always had a road back to my heart, and she probably never really left my heart. But the giving up was about letting a person just go out and breathe and be free, and maybe there's some hope for the future, even though you don't want to hang on to too much of that hope, because what if they never do come back? No, when it comes to twin flames, that road is always there. That bond, it's not like a normal 3D relationship. So the letting go is about giving a chance to learn. It's not about giving up.
What about you about the let go? What you have to let go?
For me, the letting go of was a lot of pain. A lot of pain. But it was also letting go of an agenda of what's the future. Just being in the present moment and honoring the call of my soul in the moment, and let go of expectations, let go of any future expectations, hopes, wishes. Just be in the moment and honor the soul's call as it comes.
The soul, when it's called, yes, that's huge part of it. And we're gonna have two more questions. Surrender. What did you guys have to surrender?
Surrender was interesting from both just an individual part, but as a couple. I had to surrender to all of the pain because you want to avoid it. You want to run from it. You want to do everything you can to not face it. And finally you come to a point where it's like, okay, I got to just surrender and feel it. I mean, I've literally cried for 8 hours one day.
You opened that pain and you went through it.
Yeah.
So
Felt it and felt it and felt it some more. So it's surrendering to whatever it is you have to heal.
The surrendering for me was two realizations. The one that I had to let her go to begin with, but the other one that I was not expecting was I was expecting to completely let her go. And as that did not work inside of me, I had to surrender the thought that I had that I could actually fail and actually still keep her in my life. I believed that maybe every relationship that ends for a reason, and it should stay ended. I had to change that thought because I
She
could
kept
not
in there.
go.
She kept staying inside of you.
She staying inside of me. I had to give up on what I thoroughly used to believe.
Okay, so you surrender on that part. Like, okay,
Yeah.
Angie stays here.
Angie stays here.
Doesn't matter how much you try to push her away, Angie stays here. Okay, and trust. How did you trust within the journey?
For me, it was a constant going within. Not that there's anything wrong with seeking outside guidance and help from videos and reading things, but it's a constant meditating, going within, finding the answers within. For example, even trusting when I kept getting told, tell him. I found, okay, fine, whatever the outcome is, I have to trust that there's a reason I need to tell him. So learning to, really, the trust is trusting yourself, and then trusting the universe that you're going to be guided where you need to go. And also trusting your twin flame, even though you don't know the work they've done or if they've done any work.
So that's the part of trusting the unknown?
Absolutely.
I learned to trust at a very young age. And through that trust, I had to trust my judgment that she had to go. But it was a little push on my trust when she said that she had this information she wanted to tell me. I had to trust that was going to be information that was going to be of benefit to what I thought was going to just be our rekindling of our friendship.
Mm-hmm.
I had to trust that there was no alternative motives and that there was going to be something positive that would come out of it for us, not knowing how positive it was going to be. So rather than saying, no, this just is not too deep, let's just stick with coffees and keep it gentle, I had to trust that she was going to tell me something that wasn't going to hurt us or hurt me or hurt her. All three of us, actually.
And last question. Personally, what would you give in advice to the male on your side?
In many cases that I've seen, the male is the runner. And that puts us in the opposite of what we were. It's very easy for us males to be very, very masculine.
Dominant.
Very dominant, very much in control of our surroundings. We plan, we schedule, we do, we divide, we conquer.
Warrior.
Warrior. The word ego comes in. You can still do all your warrior stuff. You can still go out and have that very busy work life. You can still go out and play hockey with the guys or football or whatever sport you play. But don't be afraid to allow a softer side to come in. There's a lot to be learned from the feminine side. There's a lot of balance to be had. And balance within allows balance from the outside too.
So you want to say that embracing the feminine energy inside of you helps you to become more and more actually wise masculine.
Yes, they work together. They give you an opportunity to be both sides, not just conquer, conquer, conquer. Sometimes there's conquer, negotiate, conquer.
What about you, Angie? What would you?
To the feminine, I think just work on yourself, face your stuff. Because from what I've understood, it's usually the feminine that have the more emotional stuff to deal with. Masculine too, but the feminine are usually the ones that have gone through a lot of the trauma, and so just face it, don't run from it. Because the more you run from it, the more you run from yourself, and the more you run from your twin. So just face your stuff, heal, grow.
And be love, right?
I was just going to say, and follow the love that's within you, because it's your guidance.
All right, well, thank you guys. I appreciate it. And I hope
Thank
this
you.
video helps on everybody as a Twin Flame
Yes.
community. Simply because you need to understand that even after so many years, so many relationships, there's still a hope. There's still a hope for you to be like Angie and Rob, that they have to overcome so many things, so many situations, and there is a hope for you to be in a union with your twin. And I hope that we're gonna be hearing more from them over the time. And personally, thank you for your time. Thank you for spending the time with me in Chicago and here in Boston. And looking forward to speak more with you guys.
Yes, we're looking forward to it as well.
Absolutely. And thank
And
you.
let's to everybody to say,
Be love.
be love.